Hi guys, I unfortunately had to re-record this for YouTube, but it's exactly the same as the ones that are on ClickUp. So I'll try and remember everything that I said. Anyway, so this is just to show you a few examples of how, the global industry, publishing industry has been affected by COVID. And then at the end, in the next part, I'll also talk about Kenyan publishing. So as we know, the COVID-19 has really hit the world by storm. It was quite a huge thing, and on the publishing industry specifically, I mean, I know that a lot of businesses are suffering, but on the publishing industry specifically, it has had huge economic impact and financial losses. If you look at specific places like Associated Media Publishing, and then they also announced, I think 2 days ago, that the Caxton Magazine Group has also closed their doors for magazine publishing specifically. So, in terms of financial losses, this is a huge thing. Coronavirus has also brought about a lot of new thinking, new ideas, new ways of doing things. So, I think it would be interesting to see in a few years' time what kind of topics have emerged, what new ideas have developed, how publishers have started distributing content, going more online, digital distribution strategies and marketing strategies, connecting with people in a different and new way. As I mentioned, the major publishing houses that have closed down or either downsized, they had to get rid of some of their employees because they can't make ends meet. Because you have to think about this, right? So with the magazine industry as well, not a lot of people are actually going out to supermarkets to buy groceries and things. They are or if they go, they'll limit their time to going once a week, whereas previously maybe they went more frequently, visited the stores more frequently. The other thing as well is people are really pressed for money, so it has had a huge economic impact on households, people losing their jobs, small businesses failing or closing their doors. So people are also unsure. They're very unsure about what's going to happen, and then to spend money on what we regard as luxury items really influences purchasing decisions. What I also mentioned is that digital distribution and product development. So your digital distribution has changed a lot. There are pros and cons because now people at least have access to books via e-publishing. The problem in that as well is that people have also been distributing illegal copies and pirating PDFs and sending it on to one another, and that is really, really wrong. Product development, people are developing books in a new and a different format, but not just that, content wise as well. All right, and I'll get to a specific example about that. But Caxton Magazines, you will learn more about magazine publishing in your third year, and it would be interesting by your third year to, more in depth, but it would be interesting to see as a case study what has happened to all of these magazine publishing houses closing down. So far as I know, the Media 24 group is still active and is still publishing magazines. So we'll just have to watch out and see what's happening. I put in a link here for you guys where you can go and read the article on the magazines closing down, and just maybe read through it and see what their reasons are and how this whole global epidemic has influenced their business model, basically. All right, so when I talk about the cons, here's an interesting idea. Now, Renette she has her own brand called Roy Tomati, and she self-published her own book. She is a chef, and she was also on Ontbytsake, a morning breakfast program on KykNet, where she prepared the food and had her own. She also on Via, she had her own little cooking show, self-published the title, and then she decided, okay, so let's do this cheap little book during lockdown, where people could basically, what the gist of this book is, that basically they help you to prepare meals in a simple way by using the basic ingredients that you have to your disposal, stuff that you would have in your cupboard, because they know that people aren't necessarily going out and buying a lot of fresh produce, or it's maybe not available. So I thought this was really a cool idea of tapping into a market and tapping into a specific thing or macro factor at the moment. So they only charge $50. They do really, and it's in e format. They do really trust people in the sense that they ask them to submit proof of payment, and then they send it via email. So I'm not sure how protected that file is, but I mean, there's also the opportunity then to just, send it on to people. But I guess they're trying to just do something at least rather than doing nothing at all. So I thought this was a good idea of how they're tapping into the need currently. All right, so globally, as we said, there are various influences. I'm not going to go through every single country's stats, but I just saw these two and I thought it's really interesting to see that even in countries where there is a strong book reading and buying culture, like the Norwegian countries and Sweden and places like that, that obviously this is a global epidemic that has affected all of the world. It's not just an African thing anymore or a developing country thing. This virus has really affected every single class, race, income group. So what they reported on this is that most publishers are financially affected, which we understand. There are no sales of books. There were no sales of books for quite some time. Even if there are, some bookstores opening now, people are still wary of going to bookstores because of the virus and getting infected. And because of this, it has a huge chain reaction in the sense that authors don't get paid, your publisher is not making profit of the books that they invested in, etc., etc. So half of the surveyed publishers already laid off employees, which is a really sad fact. And 80% of the respondents of the specific survey stated that they had to have postponed their new releases, their book releases. So, for example, you really thought or were looking forward to publishing 10 books or new books this year, and you really had a great author on your list, but due to this whole thing you had to postpone the release of it, because if I send it out to the market now, the fact that people are actually going to pick it up and buy it is very minimal. So maybe the strategy behind this is to rather wait it out and see, maybe before Christmas, or maybe do some book promotion campaigns online specifically before a certain holiday or specific time to limit the risk that's involved. When you look at the impact of COVID on Swedish publishing, it's not that bad. They did say that the book sales revenue in retail shops decreased at nearly 39%, which I acknowledge is a lot, compared to the same period last year. But then, interestingly, they did say that their online book sales were far less affected, and that actually grew by 28%. And to me, that would be the logical conclusion. I would also make that logical link to basically think, oh well, people are trapped inside their house. Not trapped, but people are in their houses. Therefore, if they still want to read, at least they have access to it in terms of, in the form of electronic books. But I think the other problem with that also is that people also are exposed to so many other things that take up their time while being, in their houses, like doing DIY or possibly just streaming series on Netflix and Showmax in gaming, etc., etc. So it may not be necessarily that now ebooks will spike because people are inside their homes, but it will differ from country to country, depending on that specific country's book buying habits.